As facilitator, I had a series of questions and I sort of initially laid them out one way, but I'm going to kind of start with the big one on the sort of the gorilla in the room one, and it has to do with unmanned systems. And as you know from the story, Ender ended up being responsible for flying an unmanned systems and on an unmanned types of equipment. So I guess I want to kind of open it up to the two military, but I would like to open it up to the others as well, panelists, to talk about what are the benefits of something of an unmanned system, and also what are some of the challenges or some of the things that we need to be thinking about in the future with regard to unmanned systems.
All right, some of the advantages of actual unmanned aircraft is, let's say Hurricane Katrina. Whenever that happened, we had all those people that were stranded on top of houses. Instead of actually using manned aircraft, you could actually put an unmanned aircraft up into the air, and we have an infrared technology on our camera that you can actually spot people a lot easier day and night. So that is one real good advantage we could have had to hopefully maybe even saved a lot more people. A couple other advantages for us for the battlefield, like over in Afghanistan and Iraq, we have the technology to fly over. We can actually see where terrorists or Al-Qaeda have actually put IEDs in the ground. You can actually see the temperature change through the IR, which is infrared. So we can plan ahead and not use that route or have somebody go dig it up. When we have troops in combat, we can fly overhead and actually point out where all the combatives are to take them out more efficiently and lose less people, which is our number one priority. That's what we do. We try to save lives as much as possible, as much as we can. We do battle damage assessment, which we call in artillery strikes. We go make sure, is that target knocked out? Did we take out everybody that we planned to? And there's also route reconnaissance. We'll fly ahead and make sure that there's no ambushes. And I'd say that's most of the advantages. One thing that we actually need to do here in the U.S. would be to open up airspace so we can fly these in national airspace. Right now, the reason why we didn't use unmanned aircraft and like Hurricane Katrina and stuff like that is because we cannot fly in national airspace. It has to be restricted airspace only, which is normally military bases only. If we were to open up airspace, we could pretty much do anything. If there's a lost child in the woods, if there's a prisoner on the loose, we can put one of these birds up for up to 6 to 8 hours and have continuous video of everything that is going on below us. And with the camera system that we have on this aircraft, we can see anything. It is that good.
I would say that probably the biggest concern, though, of continued use or expanded use of UAVs would be if it's not being used for a military purpose and it is open up to, say, a commercial market or to civilian use, what kind of uses would come from that? There's always the potential, and people are rightfully concerned that perhaps their privacy rights would be violated because someone's using UAVs in that way. So the future of UAVs are definitely, I would say, up in the air, pun intended, but would be something to consider, and there are definitely some social impacts in the United States based upon those uses.
I'll talk a little bit about potential costs or the detriment of unmanned aerial vehicles. You see right now in the press, there's a debate about the casualties that occur at the hand of drones in Afghanistan, Yemen, and elsewhere. And that debate is over the killing of civilians. And so Human Rights Watch has just put out a big report calling for the Obama administration to justify the use of drones and the legality of drones in warfare. It's because drones are a brand new way of really engaging the enemy, because it's done through what's called telepresence. You have an operator elsewhere in the world working through this object that's controlled remotely. So just as in a novel with Ender controlling the drones from afar, the drones that are operative in the theaters of combat and conflict are being controlled from elsewhere. And that is, on the one hand, a way of protecting the operators from battlefield wear and tear and from possible injury, but it also is a way of really displacing who is acting in that particular circumstance. So one of the questions Human Rights Watch asks is, who is responsible for when drones inadvertently kill civilians in an attack? Where's the responsibility placed? Where does someone answer for that? Another concern that you find with drones, and I think it's probably a misplaced concern, is that often people think these are going to be like robots from the sky, and they're going to have like their own mind, and they're going to make their own decisions. That clearly is not going on with unmanned vehicles as we understand them at this time, which are fully under human control with an operator on the ground. But there is this sort of hyperbole situation that people are looking at as increased automation comes into play. Would there be a time at which these aircraft would have decision-making capabilities built into the mechanism? And you hear a lot of talk, maybe very speculative talk, but nonetheless worries about autonomous systems and the ability of those things to act on their own without necessarily having a human in the loop, is what it's called in artificial intelligence speak. So those are some of the bigger questions with regards to the implementation of these sorts of mechanisms.
What I would add too is just the whole issue of the right to privacy. It's one thing when an unmanned vehicle as this might be able to have the capacity, let's say, to destroy life or drop bombs, but I also think its use even domestically here in the United States. What rights do we have to protect our own privacy than to have something flying over us and to watching what we're doing and what we're saying and who we're with and where we're at? I think there's an ethical concern that has to be raised in this issue.
I have a few things to say. When it comes to the Privacy Act, the military actually has a specific law against actually spying on civilians. We aren't allowed to chase, like let's say illegal immigrants are coming across the border. We can't even call the Border Patrol. We're not allowed to do anything. So that's one thing that the Army does implement is we're not allowed to spy. We're not allowed to do anything about whatever. You could be committing a crime and we can't do anything about it just because of the laws that the military has in place.